Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 108. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com.
Get your name out of my mouth.
Oh, my God. Don't say the next part that Will Smith said last night.
You're not gonna, what did the five fingers say to the face? Oh, Lord, I never watched the Oscars, but I did, I couldn't help but flipping it on after that happened last night. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that was real, right? People are debating, is it scripted? Was it real? I think that was a real, genuine, unscripted moment.
That's the way I'm taking it. Wild, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so heck of a way to start the weekend. Heck of a way to start a show here for the podcast. Again, thanks for being here. Busy day. Busy yesterday. Unusually active Sunday here because Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert speaking with the media. I guess it was mostly Tomlin. How much did Colbert speak yesterday? Really not much, I guess.
Yeah, not too terribly much. I mean, just said a few things, but
but
obviously via, I think, phone or Zoom or something.
Yeah, so the league owner meetings are happening right now. So Tomlin is down there because he is part of the competition committee. So we'll jump right into what Mike Tomlin had to say. There was a lot of good information, but I think probably it's the headline, Dave. It's also arguably the least surprising thing that Mike Tomlin said. But actually, in a sit down with Missy Matthews at Steelers.com, was asked, how will the team look to add its fourth quarterback on the roster? Three currently on the team right now: Trubisky, Rudolph, and Haskins. And Tomlin said, quote, probably the draft, I think, is our target as we sit here today, but there's so many moving parts in draft development. And so that's our target, but we'll see what happens and transpires. Obviously, how the names come off the board have a lot to do with that, end quote. So no surprise here. And I know that's why we did not chalk up their pro day circuit last week to just simply due diligence, but it's a serious interest in adding not only a quarterback, but a quarterback early in this draft.
Yeah, the non-secret's out of the bag, right? And I see a lot of people trying to spin this maybe as a huge smoke screen, but I think in so many words, both Tomlin and Colbert, said yesterday, they don't run and hide from any of this, and really, how can you in today's technology and with us with the Kozora PI firm on the case here, and being able to, like, I'm sitting here watching the North Carolina Pro Day right now on the ACC network, and we were able to pick out a handful of people there as well too. This is real, like it or not, and as we've kind of thought for a while now. It certainly is trending that this team's going to draft a quarterback probably in the first round, at the latest the second round. But if you're placing your bets right now, your bet is that the Steelers are going to take a quarterback in the first round if one they like drops to them. The other kind of spin that I think is out there right now, and especially I think you're the one that came across kind of the who was it that had the quote on Mike Tomlin talking to Hugh Freeze?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Todd McShay on their podcast last week, that McShay had a conversation with Freeze, and Tomlin had a talk with Hugh Freeze ahead of the Liberty Pro Day last Tuesday, and essentially said, we love Malik Willis. We're just not sure if he'll be there at 20. And I don't know if that means that they would plan on trading up or just realizing we probably won't get this guy kind of Jordan Davis style. But that is the report from Todd McShay.
I don't know how you can add much context to what he, what the report says, other than going with whatever your bias is. If you think that the Steelers won't trade up, then your bias will tell you that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have no intention of trading up. If your bias is that they might do anything they can to get Malik Willis, then they then the plan might be for them to try to trade up. At this stage of the process, though, I think it's impossible to guess exactly what will happen because so many things can happen, and I think a lot of it obviously is dependent on probably what's going to happen within those first 4 picks of the draft. Because personally, and I think you agree at this point, it would be a shock if they traded up into the top 4 to draft any quarterback, and where the fun or where the real guessing game probably begins to start is with the Giants at the 5th overall pick there. And obviously I mocked that in my first mock draft, but I think most people should at this point be resigned to the fact that there is a very high probability that the Steelers will draft a quarterback in the first round. It's just a matter of where and who.
Yeah, and how. Was it trade up? Is it sitting at 20? Is it some other method? Those things we probably will not have answers to come draft day, prior to draft day. But it seems it would be certainly a St. Peter's kind of upset for Pittsburgh to not draft a quarterback, if that metaphor makes sense. Like the odds are not guaranteed, but they seem to be incredibly high.
Right.
And speaking of quarterbacks and pro days, Kevin Colbert said the Steelers intend on being at 4 more pro days. That was yesterday. Colbert is at North Carolina today. Tomlin is not because he is stuck at the owners' meetings and said he is, quote, pissed about it. So we know where his heart would rather be right now. But Colbert, and as you spotted, Matt Canada, Brandon Hunt, Dan Rooney Jr., at least are at North Carolina today. Does not sound like Mike Sullivan is there, which is a little strange that he's not in attendance for this workout. According to Jim Nagy, Howell's going, this is quarterback Sam Howell, the top prospect for the Tar Heels. Howell will have a second throwing session some point prior to the draft to allow coaches like Tomlin, who could not make it out of the pro day, to watch in person. Don't know the date on that. So that's one of the 4 pro days that we know Colbert said this team, in terms of Colbert Tomlin, will be at. The other 3 is more of an open question.
Yeah, I guess the bigger question, look, the Alabama Pro Day is on Wednesday, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that at least Colbert will be there. And if Tomlin is wrapped up, I would expect Tomlin to be at the Alabama Pro Day as well too. I guess the big question comes into the Tuesday. I think Florida State and West Virginia are the 2 most notable schools on Tuesday, so that could probably go, I don't know, either way there as far as which way at least Colbert would go. And then on Thursday, I think, is the Western Kentucky Pro Day, right, with Bailey Zappi and D'Angelo, who's D'Angelo Malone, and then of course they've got a wide receiver I think that led the nation with like 150 something catches or something there as well too. And my bet would be that if they're going to continue the quarterback tour, even though Zappi really isn't regarded as top 4 or top 5 quarterbacks in his class, it would make sense for them to kind of round it out and be at least Colbert, be at that pro day.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be there because Zappi isn't the top prospect and it's a smaller school. They usually don't go there. They were at Liberty, of course, but Willis is a first round guy. But I think Alabama, potentially West Virginia, what you said, Florida State, and I know LSU is in April. And so I think maybe LSU could be on their docket as well.
Right. I mean, in that like April 6th or something?
Yeah, it's one of the last pro days.
Okay. So that's that. It's hard to imagine. At least Tomlin loves that LSU pro day, so hard to imagine him not being there. And I guess the way they made it sound is both of them have been to 8 pro days. Was that kind of the quote that was out there? And I have yet to visibly see Kevin Colbert at the Notre Dame pro day. I don't know if you saw him there or not. I know the report was he was there. And it made it, what other pro day would make an 8th for Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, I don't know if he was, I don't have the exact quote in front of me of what Colbert said. And you're right. And we talked about this, actually, you and I, in DMs over the weekend. I was like, did you see Kevin Colbert actually at Notre Dame? Because the report was he was going to be there. It was listed, but I never actually saw him.
I never either, but now I haven't gone through. You have to have the app on the TV and all to get to the Notre Dame Live or Fighting Irish TV or whatever it is. And it's kind of cumbersome to go through that way. I did a little bit more last night, but I have yet. I'll continue looking, but all we have right now is just a report. I know you and I kind of like to make visual confirmations on a lot of these.
Yeah, because that came from the AP's Andrew Groover, and that could be just someone looking at a list of names of guys slated to attend, credentialed to attend, but actually being there could be different things. So
now we saw the other Colbert there, right?
Yeah, Dan Colbert was there. We know that from Notre Dame. So it makes sense that Kevin would be there as well, especially because Kevin's kind of last year's GM on that pro day circuit with his son, Dan. So we'll see. But we have the main list of names right now. And obviously no quarterback at Notre Dame. So it's not incredibly consequential. There's really not even a first-round pick for Notre Dame outside of Kyle Hamilton, who's not going to make it to 20. So whether or not Colbert was there isn't going to swing too much of our draft beliefs or evaluation or, speculation on who they may take.
Right.
So that was the pro day circuit. Mike Tomlin, speaking of the draft, is a big fan of the receiver talent pool in this class, and good thing because Pittsburgh still does not have a slot receiver on this team right now. Said, quote, "I like the talent pool, particularly in the draft. I've been studying that here in recent weeks and feel really good about our abilities to round that group out. So this team is going to draft a receiver. Again, it's just a question of when and who and what's the body type and all those kinds of things."
Yeah, and I hate to get into theoretical type situations here, but the whole draft process is kind of theoretical to a degree. And I've thought about this quite a bit. And look, the team has already lost 3 wide receivers in free agency, and Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, and Ray McLeod. Some people might say, well, those aren't really losses, Dave. Juju is obviously to a degree, less so with James Washington and Ray McLeod, in my opinion. Here's something that kind of crossed my mind, Alex, and take your get ready. Here comes the thermometer.
Yeah, don't like to hear that on a Monday morning.
What is the possibility of this team maybe trading either Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool as part of some sort of move up to get a guy like Malik Willis?
I mean, again, I don't want to say no to anything, but are you going to go trade a top weapon, especially Deontay, to go get your quarterback and say, well, you're not going to throw it to anybody now? I mean, you just lost a bunch of receivers, and typically to make those moves up, you don't really have to give up players. That's pretty rare. So I would put those odds at pretty low.
All right, but where are you right now on them being able to extend Deontay later this offseason?
It just depends on what he's asking for. Obviously, the price just went up for receivers based on the contracts that Devontae Adams got, that Tyreek Hill got to compete and jump Devontae Adams. And so I think the odds have decreased in terms of the likelihood of that happening. But would they trade him? I doubt they're really even in the major talks right now. So I don't know if a trade would even happen during the draft because it's not like they're probably really negotiating too hard right now anyway.
Right. I'm just throwing it out there, as a kind of outer layer of this thing.
What was the last time a team traded up in the first round and included a player in that package that wasn't like a quarterback?
That's a good question. I don't know that right off the top of my head there, but and look, for whatever it's worth, and it's not much. It wasn't a Fowler that said something about Claypool rumblings at potential trade. I didn't pay it much mind initially when that report came out, and even Fowler said it's more speculation on his part there. But when you start going back through this in your head, things like that kind of jump out at you. I'm not obviously saying something like that will happen. I'm just wondering how to what degree the possibility of that might be.
What do you give it? Because I give it a really low chance of happening.
I mean, I would obviously give it less than 15%, but I to me, a guy like, and especially if Mike Tomlin's high on this wide receiver class, and if indeed, Deontay could be gone after this season, and if indeed Mike Tomlin made it sound like also, and Kevin Colbert to some degree, that they're going to be adding another veteran wide receiver in free agency in the second wave here. If they were able to do that and then draft 2 wide receivers, would that be enough to compensate? Once again, that it's out there. That's a Dave with his tinfoil hat on way too tight at this portion, but the thought did cross my mind.
Yeah, I mean, especially Deontay. Do you want to bring in a Malik Willis, even though they probably wouldn't play this year, not immediately, but then trade away your top weapon for Trubisky or whatever your offense is trying to do? I think draft picks are just the more conventional and just a better way to go about it.
Because even if you lost Deontay after this upcoming season to free agency next offseason, you wouldn't reap it. Let's assume that he got max contract and all like that. You would get a 3rd round draft pick. You would think, or at least it would equal up to a 3rd round draft pick in the compensatory formula, whatever the offset ends up being. Who knows at this point? But and that wouldn't obviously come until when 24, right?
Yeah, a year, or even is your contract's through 2023. Yeah, we get it for 24. You're right.
Right. So I don't know, just something that crossed my mind. I wanted to make sure I brought up today.
Gotcha. Speaking of adding 2, we'll kind of switch to and just kind of run these together because Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin were speaking yesterday. Colbert talking about the state of the roster says they believe they have starters at 24, 25 positions. The lone exception to that is not having a starter at strong safety. So that's an obvious point. Terrell Edmunds remains a free agent right now. There's been no other in-house addition added. It is interesting that it sounds like Colbert's implying they feel like they have a starting slot receiver. I'm not quite sure who that guy's supposed to be. Is it Gunner? I don't know. Anthony Miller. Not great options regardless, but strong safety will be added to is essentially what Colbert's saying. It's just a matter of when and who and all those kind of questions.
Right. And I don't know how much to read into the Terrell Edmunds bio change. It's hard to read into some of these actions these guys have on Twitter specifically, though. Maybe it's a cat and mouse game. Who knows at this point here? But and as I've kind of speculated all along, if I like the probability of Edmunds returning going into this thing. A little less so now at this point. I would have thought that if Edmunds was going to be back, I would have thought that it would have happened now. But now, obviously, if something like that does happen, it would be at an extremely cheap deal that wouldn't prevent the Steelers from adding to the position group in the draft period there. So, are we talking about a 2-year, $8 million deal structured like the Levi Wallace one that would give the Steelers an easy out after the season? Or are we talking even cheaper at that, at this point? I mean, the further you get along in this process now, it is beginning to feel more like Terrell Edmunds won't land back with the Steelers, but until he is signed somewhere else, there's always the possibility of that as well too. Maybe Edmunds is getting a reality check on what his value is.
Right, and if it's not Edmunds in terms of who they could sign, Colbert said, and there's going to be some subjectivity to how you interpret these comments, but he says, quote, "Our preference is always to add players coming off of their first contract or as close to their first contract as they can be," which tracks basically with how Pittsburgh has operated in free agency this year. Levi Wallace off his first contract, Trubisky, off his rookie deal, then another year in Buffalo, but pretty much off his first contract. Mason Cole, kind of a similar situation. James Daniels, a very similar situation. And so obviously Colbert and the Steelers, like any team, wants the younger the better, in terms of they don't want to get the 30-year-old, might be over the hill, and they're paying for, past production, not future production. So does that throw cold water on the Tyrann Mathieu stuff? Again, it's the preference. It's not the guarantee, and Pittsburgh can operate in different ways. So you don't want to close those doors, but, Pittsburgh ideally would like to have somebody in that 25 to 26 to 27-year-old range.
And man, the list isn't great right now. When you look at that, I think some people have thrown out the name Everett, but he going through some sort of legal situation now.
Is it Anthony Everett?
No, what's his name? Hold on a minute here. I will get you the name. the one that was in the unfortunate accident that killed the girl. Hold on a minute, I'll get you.
That's not coming to mind right now. The story sounds familiar.
DeShazier Everett.
Okay.
The
yeah,
Washington, the street free agent.
Oh, yeah. If you're in a legal thing, you're probably not going to get signed.
So if you don't, obviously Tyrann Mathieu at the top of this list on over the cap based on current or previous APY, but then you got Jabril Peppers, who I think we tossed around a little bit, but he is he's probably the most attractive one not named Edmonds, I think right now on this list, right?
Yeah, that one actually makes a lot of sense in terms of just like the fit of what the Steelers are looking for. And if you assume for a second it's not going to be Terrell Edmonds. So I know we have mentioned him before, and that might be the name. You've also mentioned Keanu Neal, who I know he's not coming off of his first contract, but he's
he has
not
an injury. He's still coming off, I think, an ACL too, isn't he?
Is he? I'm not totally familiar with how his circumstances change. I know he was playing linebacker, weak side backer with Dallas last year, kind of switching back to safety now. Peppers is still only 26, so that might be one of your top names to circle.
If you could get him on a vet benefit contract, that would make a little bit more sense there, I think there.
I know Jeremy Fowler in an article had mentioned DeMonte Casey from Dallas as well, former Falcon. And I was a big fan of Casey coming out of San Diego State, kind of a Mike Hilton type of dude, but with really good ball skills. He's played safety, played slot corner. Doesn't have the size of a strong safety, though, like an Edmonds does. So maybe there's some concern there. And he's had some injury stuff as well, but still only 28 years old.
Keanu Neal, let's see what I thought he had some sort of injury last year.
He may have. I mean, he had some injury issues in Atlanta, like back-to-back years we barely played. He had like I think ACL or Achilles or some major, season-ending type of stuff.
Right. I thought he had some sort of injury that he's coming off of.
Let me see if I can see here. I don't think he played the entire season last year. He had COVID. He had a chest elbow thing, maybe. Looks like that. Doesn't look like it was a major injury. There was COVID, but he's a guy that has not always been available. And the value of Edmonds was that he was always available. Like the dude just never missed time. Essentially, missed I think one game in his career, and I think that was regular season finale, where it was a pretty meaningless situation. So you would like to have somebody that's dependable and available because that's what Edmonds brought more than anything else.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. So the way that Colbert said it seems like they're satisfied with the slot receiver spot, which seems like a disagreeable opinion to have.
Well, I mean, it did sound like they're open to adding a receiver still.
Through free agency?
Yeah.
What did he say to?
I'll have to go back through some of the comments here, but it did sound like either Tomlin or Colbert, I forget which one specifically, did mention wide receiver.
Okay. I mean, you would think they would add because they need to add somebody, but it is also, in terms of that slot receiver, hard to find who that name is.
Sure.
We've had a couple conversations trying to just find some names who just fit, and it is hard to do that right now.
I mean, you're at the point now where anybody that you did bring in, barring it being a re-signing of, someone like an Edmonds, and even he might be at the minimum stage right now. I mean, you're looking at a very minimal contract, I would think.
Yeah, like I'm thinking slot receiver, I'm thinking like a Lance Moore equivalent, like a veteran-ish type of dude. This team, I know the team wants youth, but like this team could use a veteran presence at receiver in this locker room as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, and if Jarvis Landry didn't think he's worth $20 million, I still think that's a potential landing spot there. If you got him, I mean, the Steelers aren't going to sign him for $20 million per. I don't even think they would sign him for $10 million per, to be quite honest with you. But if you got him for somewhere like, I don't know, 2 years at, let's say, $12 million, right around in there, that would make the most sense. Anything more than that, I can't see the Steelers doing it. I mean, he would be, I think, the ideal fit as kind of that bridge 1 year guy, but the price tag always is going to come into play, and he might want a 1 year deal, and the Steelers aren't going to do a 1 year deal for more than $3.5 million with him. So it would have to be a 2 or 3 year deal, and to sort of read the article, I think by Florio on Pro Football Talk, that he still thinks his value is at $20 million. And if that's the case, good luck with that.
Yeah, he's going to be sitting a long time if he thinks he's worth $20 million or going to at least get $20 million. per year. So I'll go back to Tomlin here, some, current present day roster type of stuff. For the first time, essentially, Mike Tomlin said he was, very open to the idea of moving Kendrick Green. And that would be obviously a move back to left guard. Nothing, set in stone, obviously, but said, quote, he had true position flexibility in college. All the other guys do as well. We feel really good about having an opportunity to put the pieces together to put the very best unit that we can on the field. And not only that, but have quality depth to address attrition and the things that naturally happen during the course of the journey. So very standard cliche stuff. We knew when they signed all these guys, they were going to sit there and say, we'll put the best five out there. Like that was going to be their standard thing. And we won't know those answers about who's playing where and who's starting and who's backing up until, much, much later into the summer. But Tomlin at least acknowledging the positional flexibility that Kendrick Green has.
Man, at least now it's apparent that they know they've got to be they can't rely on him to be a center. I mean, you can go into camp and frame it however you want, and even let him open up camp as a starting center. But I think you got to be open to not letting that happen come the start of the season. And as I've said from middle of last year on, it does move him wherever you want. Move him to fullback if you want with Kendrick Green. But if he doesn't stay off the ground, it doesn't matter, And of course, I'm being funny about fullback position there. But, guard, center, it doesn't matter. He's got to stay off the ground. He's got to be more reliable there, in the interior portion of the line. And I will be really, really shocked if he's your opening day week one center of this team. And be quite honest with you, from what they've added so far, I'll be pretty impressed if he's able to secure the left guard starting spot too, barring injury.
Right. I mean, I understand the instinct to move him back to left guard where he is more natural, and there's certainly value and a benefit to that, but it's not this cure-all that's going to solve all of his problems. He had those issues at left guard in college in terms of technique and handling power, and he'll be covered up more at guard than he was at center. And I think there's actually some other negative things if you want to put him at left guard, but could he try to become, and I don't want to say that, he cannot be a starter because it is just 1 year, rookie year, tough situation. Pittsburgh, I think, misevaluated his readiness to play day one and just have done a kind of a poor job handling him overall. But, in theory, looking out down the road is the best thing for Kendrick Green to become that super versatile backup like Chris Hubbard or an Essex. Not that he can play tackle, he can't, but like a, BJ Finney type of guy. That might be kind of the best way he sticks in the NFL, just kind of based on the ads Pittsburgh has made and maybe what's best for Green, having that flexibility.
Right. I could more so see him as the swing guy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could he be the new BJ Finney? That might be again, and that'd be disappointing because he was supposed to be the starting center. But my terrible take today, I say, would you rather him be a good backup or a poor starter? And I know which I would rather have there.
Right. Exactly.
So.
I'm not shocked one bit. I'm just glad that we're the way that they've moved so far with the additions in the interior portion of the line. Obviously, ready to see Kevin Dotson, kind of become more the player that we thought coming out of Louisiana Lafayette with him would be the he obviously had to suffer through that ankle injury last year and all. You really would expect him to take the bull by the horns and come out right at camp and establish himself as, say, the team's starter, whatever side you want to put him on. The biggest question is, where do you put a guy like James Daniels? And I think you pontificated that right guard might be his best spot there. But at least they do have the position flexibility with all these guys for the most part. And including some center with James Daniel, and then Cole obviously playing all three interior spots as well. They do have the ability to mix and match here.
Yeah, I wrote an article on that 2-3 weeks ago. I mean, I put together just off the top 6-7 configurations of how this line could look, and you could have added a couple more if you really wanted to on there. So there's no set in stone. I have an idea of how I think it's going to look, what makes the most amount of sense, but injuries and play and all that's going to change so much in the summer. So we'll just see what happens. But, flexibility is good, and it's good to have options, but you want to get a solidified starting five. Like, these are our five in these five spots. These decisions do not have to be made today, nor should they be made today. But at some point, you want to sit there and say, the versatility is great, but we just want talent, guys who are good at the spot that we're going to play. And that's ultimately all that matters when you snap the ball on Sundays.
Forced to make a choice, right? A prediction right now. Will Kendrick Green, barring injury, be a starter week 1?
No.
I'm with you. No.
My initial projection was it'll be a core 4, or Dan Moore at left tackle, Kevin Dotson left guard, Mason Cole at center, James Daniels at right guard, and a core 4 at right tackle. That's my best guess currently at the starting 5.
Sounds like a good probability there.
Tomlin talking about the coaching staff on the hires of Brian Flores and the promotion of Terrell Austin, said the continuity with Austin was a big driving reason for why he got promoted. He did look at a house and talk to guys like Patrick Graham, Chris Richard, Joe Witt Jr., but landed on Austin, and then talked more about the Brian Flores situation. And, basically said, he reached out to him initially because, the legal stuff he was going through, didn't want Flores to be on an island, didn't feel all alone out there. And in so many words, basically said, that Flores was not getting any other job offers. He would have not gotten any other job offers. And Tomlin wanted to be in that position to help Flores out. And obviously this isn't just a handout, and Flores is a great defensive mind. It's going to be an asset. And Tomlin talked about all the ways that Flores will help him and this team beyond his title role of linebackers coach and assistant and things like that. But it is kind of that coaching fraternity that Tomlin talked about that led him to reach out to and ultimately hire Brian Flores.
Yeah, and he on the surface seems like a great addition to the coaching staff. Should be able to relate to the players very well. Should have some good ideas in the meeting room. All the things that we've said when the news broke several weeks ago there. And I don't know how much you want to read into kind of stepping on the toe. Haven't seen Austin a whole heck of a lot on the pro day circuit, have we?
No, just once actually so far at Pitt. Now, of course, we could have missed him, but I've seen Flores 3 times. I've only seen Austin once so far.
Okay.
And I know some people will take umbrage with Tomlin's comments about Flores and, hiring him just as this, I don't know, some people might think about it as some sort of charity type of thing, but it's not to me that at all. And I can certainly appreciate Tomlin helping out a coach in need, regardless of what you think about Flores' claims and all those things. Obviously, he's in a tough spot here from an NFL, hiring, coaching standpoint, kind of, not been blackballed, but I don't know, just kind of all on that island that Tomlin talked about until the legal stuff gets resolved. And I think about, I'm sure Tomlin thought about all the coaches that have helped him in his career, Bill Stewart, Tony Dungy. And I'm sure, Tomlin wants to pay that forward and repay the favor to a guy like Flores in a tough spot right now.
Right, and I think Tomlin even said he kind of thought initially that Flores would have landed a job, another head coaching job, but obviously didn't, and give him a time, to kind of reset. And they could obviously use his knowledge in the room as well too. So
right.
It made a lot of sense from several angles there, and they will obviously do their best to try to keep the legal side separate of the coaching side.
Yeah, but that lawsuit is still running its course, and I'm not going to have play-by-play of it, but we'll certainly keep you updated whenever there's resolution and big happenings there on the legal side of things. But from a football standpoint, Flores is a great hire. It's going to be a big benefit for the Steelers, and I don't think I have the full quote in front of me, but actually I have part of it here. He says, Tomlin on Flores, quote, senior defensive assistant and linebacker coach is his title, but there's so many ways that he's going to help us and help me. His contributions are going to be significant. So we'll see what that looks like. I think it'll be similar to what Austin had done the last 3 years, kind of carrying a very similar title in terms of, coaching linebackers in practice, and then on game day, kind of being that extra set of eyes and ears for Mike Tomlin.
Okay.
Let's see what else. Tuitt, yeah. More optimism on Tuitt from both Colbert and Tomlin, being hopeful and expressing, again, optimism that Tuitt will play. But as we've cautioned this whole time, there's no definitive answer on if Stephon Tuitt will return to the team in 2022. So it feels like we're slowly moving in the right direction in terms of the odds Tuitt plays, but there still is no guarantee of that.
Yeah, and I think even in the sit down with Missy Matthews on the Steelers.com, He says on expectations of Tuitt coming back, I'm excited and optimistic, but I don't have any definitive information regarding his participation in 2022 as we sit here. He goes on to say, like a lot of unanswered questions, we might not always get the answers that we desire, particularly in a timely manner, but we've been in really good discussions and we've got good communication. More from Tomlin on Tuitt. He says, and so we'll just keep walking the journey and do it in a very transparent way. Yes, we'd like to have answers as we sit here today, but you just don't always get that. One final quote here. And so we're going to make contingency plans and prepare ourselves and work to insulate ourselves by acquiring as much talent as we can. But obviously the addition of Stephon Tuitt would be significant. So still a lot of gray area in there. You would think if they were sure at this point Tuitt would be part of this 2022 team, that would be out there by now. They could get into the draft and maybe not have the answers that they want. Go the way of a defensive lineman, and we've seen this team cut players right after the draft, right? I don't know if it would come to that, but maybe they would have. It is hard for them to operate though right now because what a key position that Tuitt has played in that defensive line, and obviously not last year, but the year before that was just a monster, And if that was the guy, if we're talking about them getting that 2020 Tuitt back in 2022, oh boy, how nice would that be? But at this point, I'm not sure anybody knows for sure whether or not he wants to play.
Yeah, or I don't think anyone knows for sure, based on the comments that Colbert and Tomlin have made here. Now, I know that Ed Bouchette from The Athletic reported that Tuitt has been seen around the facility, so that would kind of signal that there's some desire, but it really sounds like at this point, we probably won't know until OTAs in spring, in May, when this team hits the field for the first time to see, is Tuitt going to be out there at all? That probably will be the time we know whether or not he's playing or not.
Oh, yeah. Well, OTAs start not long right after the draft, right?
So May, yeah.
We're not too terribly far away from that. That would be the next line in the sand.
Right, yeah, but going into the draft, this team may not know, and so they may have to protect themselves by drafting a defensive lineman probably later in the draft, but I guess you can't rule anything out at this point because they have to kind of assume that worst case scenario is that Tuitt does not play. Right. It is a tricky spot to be in, so we'll see how the team addresses it. But yeah, still no. It sounds like he wants to play and is just seeing if he can get back in that space to play. But I guess I'm kind of speculating there.
Yeah, and that's all we've been able to do all off season with Tuitt is kind of. Loosely speculate because there's just not a lot of, you don't know how the guy feels, and right. Where his mind's at. They obviously didn't have, as we talked about, there wasn't probably necessarily from a cap space need to make the decision right at the start of the new league year. This team's fine on cap space still. So they're going to let it play out a little bit longer, it looks like.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. To go back to kind of the inside baseball of the Steelers' inner workings, Kevin Colbert confirmed the team has wrapped up their first round of interviews for the GM position to replace Kevin Colbert. So 16 people in total interviewed. That's 2 internal candidates, Omar Khan, Brandon Hunt, and 14 external candidates. And so second round will come after the draft, and that'll be a more in-depth interview with, I assume it'll be a finalist list of, and Colbert did not say this, but I'm guessing about 3 to 5 names on that finalist list. That's when Tomlin gets more involved. They get kind of more in the nitty-gritty about how you'd run the Steelers. And so one of those 16 names will be the next GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right. We got it narrowed down. They have it surrounded.
1 of 16. So that's the story there. Let's see. Mike Tomlin excited about the Miles Jack signing. Basically said the phone call was, "Hey, Miles Jack, you want to play for Pittsburgh?" He said yes, and they said, "All right, let's do it." So that's probably one of the easier signings Mike Tomlin's had in his career.
He had the ability to drop the "We want volunteers, not hostages" quote again.
One of his favorites.
Right.
Let's see what
Bush
else
was mentioned.
Yeah, just Tomlin saying he expects Bush to get better and be better another year out from the ACL, and certainly he'll need to be for him and for the team. And you would expect him to be in a better spot, the further removed he is from that ACL tear. But it'll be obviously a critical year for Devin Bush.
Let's see. He talked about Chukwuma Okorafor this morning at the league's meetings. He says he's youthful and experienced. That's what's exciting. This is a guy that's a multiple-year starter for us. He's only 24 years old. I think it's reasonable to expect him to continue to grow and get better. I know he brings that business approach, and those are some of the reasons why we're excited about continuing to do business with him. On Levi Wallace, the signing, this is a guy that's been battle-tested in every stage of his life, was a walk-on at Alabama and earned his way. He was undrafted at Buffalo and earned his way. I'm just really excited about having an opportunity to work with a guy who's overcome adversity and smiled in the face of it in a manner which he has throughout every level of play. Also goes on to talk about the re-signing of Montravius Adams and Akello Witherspoon. By the way, that's finalized now. Weren't we talking about on Friday? Still up in the air that Akello wasn't made official yet. That's been made official now. He says it's an interesting discussion because it's two guys that got on a moving train a year ago. I'm just really excited about continuing to do work with them, to have them for the totality of the journey. Both guys gave us admirable contributions in the manner in which they came to us, and so it's reasonable to expect those contributions to be more significant and more fluid, having an opportunity to be part of us from day zero.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people kind of forget that these players aren't just names and jerseys, they're people. And so when you get traded over right before the season or signed mid-year, like Montravius Adams did, that's a lot of change. You're picking up new playbook, new teammate, new locker room, new practice style, coaches, new city. I got to get an apartment. I got to get bills paid, like all this other stuff that we kind of forget about. Like if everyone's moved before. Most people have moved before. They understand how tough it is to move just in general. Now imagine moving while still trying to play football at the highest level. So just having comfort and stability and a whole offseason to breathe and kind of, work from the ground up. There's a lot of value in that, especially for younger guys and less experienced guys like Witherspoon, like Montravius Adams. So that doesn't guarantee, a big leap in that second year, but I think it puts you in a much better position to succeed.
Right.
So all good things there. Let's see. Kevin Colbert, happy he did not have to give up draft picks to get Mitch Trubisky. Kind of a veiled, glad we didn't have to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo comment the way I interpreted that.
Right.
But, happy to get Trubisky. And I think it was Colbert or Tomlin that praised the mix of youth and experience that Trubisky has, kind of that good middle ground. Dude's 27, but has 50 starts. You don't find those guys too often.
And he made sure that Colbert made sure to say, look, it doesn't prevent us from still adding to the room, and I think the contract speaks volumes of that as well too, and that plays back into kind of the opening thing that we talked about here, and Mike Tomlin saying that more than likely the fourth quarterback is going to come from the draft.
Yeah, and so again, it seems highly likely that it'll be a first, no worse than a second round pick on the position. And from there, who it is and how they get that guy is really anyone's guess. But I imagine the Steelers streak of, Tomlin, Colbert, pro day visits and first round picks will continue after this year.
I'm willing to bet we'll be able to draw a straight line right to it again.
Yep. All right, Dave, anything else? Tomlin, Colbert said that was the bulk of, I think, the comments that we wrote about. I know Tomlin, like you said, spoke today, and I'm still trying to digest some of those things. But anything else big that I'm missing?
Let me
overtime, right? He does not fear sudden death. Tomlin with the very Tomlin-like quote there. One of the few guys in favor of the sudden death overtime.
Yeah, and are we overly surprised by that? As I wrote that up this morning here, I'm not. I mean, he's viewed as a defensive-minded coach, and probably likes the aspect that if you don't want to lose overtime in that manner of not having the football first, then get off the field, and I had to even research this because I couldn't pull it up off the top of my head, if you can believe that. The Steelers were in 3 overtime games in 2021. They won 2 of them and tied another one. I obviously remember the tie, and their 2 overtime wins came against Seattle and Baltimore. All 3 of those games, they did not have the opening possession.
Ooh, that's a good stat. Good stat of the weird to go 2-0-1 in overtime, so we didn't start with the ball.
And their 2 overtime wins, like I said, came against Seattle and the Baltimore Ravens, and their tie came against obviously the Detroit Lions. So in all 3 of those games, they were able to survive it. So I think that's the way Tomlin looks at this is, hey, you don't want to don't be blaming a loss on the coin toss. Just get off the field.
Right. And his other point was you had 60 minutes prior to that to win the game. And if you don't do that, then you get what you get.
Right. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out to kind of the context that I get from Tomlin is he doesn't think that there's going to be enough votes to a majority of 24 votes to alter what it is now. Now, he's only one person in this, but I imagine the competition committee, even if it gets it passed there, right, has to get approved by the competition committee before it goes to the owners, right?
I believe so. Now, it's 24 votes to pass it, but is that the owners' votes to pass it?
I think that's the owners' votes.
Okay. How many votes does it need to pass it to competition committee? Is it majority?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but one of the change proposals would have to fly first, and then they would take the change proposal to the owners to talk about amending the rule.
Right. And my understanding, and you might have done more research on it than I have, is that there's certainly support for overtime changes, but is there enough support is the question. And they're very borderline on that. So I'm not even 100% sure on what some of those changes are. I assume it is allowing both teams possession regardless of what happens on first possession.
Well, the Colts and the Eagles have a proposal that allow both teams an opportunity to possess the ball in overtime. Tennessee Titans allow both teams an opportunity to possess the ball in overtime unless the team with the first possession scores a touchdown and a successful 2-point try.
That one's weird. I don't know. That's just an extra layer on top. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, whatever happens. I don't have any incredibly strong opinions either way on
my
how
opinion.
overtime's set.
I've said this since last season. Get off the field.
Right. Now you're like Tomlin. You and Tomlin are rowing the same boat.
Right. If you want, there's already not enough defense sometimes in games. Man, make that more important. Get off the field, period.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get that, but I think you guys are at least in the very small minority of how most people feel, which is totally fine. But I don't think you're going to get your wish. And at some point, it sounds like they're going to change these overtime rules. Maybe this year, maybe in the future. I don't know, but sometime soon. And for the rest of your life, that's a movie quote, right?
Which one?
So I was trying to make a reference. I was trying to. Anyway, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon for the rest of your life. That's an old movie quote. That's an old one.
Oh, okay.
Gone with the Wind. Is that a thing?
My wife would be able to answer that.
I don't know what I'm even saying anymore. Let's take it back to the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Anything else from Tomlin, Colbert that you wanted to address?
I think we got most of it, didn't we?
I think so too. I did a study. I've been working on this thing for a long time. I tried doing this a couple in February, and it just wasn't working. And I spent basically my entire Sunday evening working on this. I wanted to do a study on, because I hear this all the time from fans. The Steelers have the smallest coaching staff in football. The Roonies are cheap. They don't want to pay for a large coaching staff and all that. So I wanted to know, is that true? Do the Steelers really have the smallest coaching staff in football? And so I went through all 32 teams to find out the number of coaches they had. And that was a lot of doing because a lot of team sites aren't updated and I got to try to cross-reference stuff. But anyway, that's all stuff no one cares about. What I concluded is, in fact, it is true. The Pittsburgh Steelers have among the smallest coaching staffs in football. Only 18 coaches on their coaching staff right now. That is the only team with less coaches are the Patriots with 17. And they're probably maybe going to add because they're missing some big pieces of their coaching staff right now, but only 18 coaches for Pittsburgh, 9 on offense, 7 on defense, and 1 on special teams. And by the way, Pittsburgh, the only team to have just one coach with a special teams coach label. That, of course, being Danny Smith. Most teams have a special teams coordinator and an assistant. Pittsburgh, the only one with just one guy having a title, having something to do with special teams. So interesting study there, and one of those few times where the trope and the accusation ends up being true. That Pittsburgh does have a very small coaching staff,
and that's good work by you. I mean, when you went into this, what did you think you were going to find? Did you think you were going to prove the narrative wrong, or what?
I thought maybe I would because generally that happens. I knew Pittsburgh didn't have a big coaching staff, but I wondered, is that just commonplace around the league? Pittsburgh might have 17 guys and most of the league has 18 to 20. So it's all kind of, about the same. But no, I mean, Miami has the most coaches. They have 27 on their coaching staff and Pittsburgh has 18. Now, I'm not saying this is good or bad. People can determine whether or not it's good or bad based on their own thoughts and feelings. There are pros and cons. A bigger coaching staff will offer more help, obviously, more individualized attention, but you could have that too many cooks in the kitchen kind of issue. A smaller coaching staff obviously just less people to handle the same amount of tasks and same amount of work overall. So I'm not putting a value judgment on this. I just wanted to find out brass tacks, how does Pittsburgh stack up with the rest of the league? And they're among the smallest in football.
But if the Patriots have the lowest, then doesn't that make it okay?
Yeah. Although the Patriots are weird. They have no offensive line coach. The running back coach might be retiring. I don't know. So the Patriots, people are questioning like what Belichick is doing this year, but obviously he's got the track record to be able to do this kind of stuff.
I haven't given it much thought overall, but what are your initial thoughts on the size of the coaching staff? Do you think it needs to be more? Do you think Tomlin tries to delegate too much to too few people? I guess would be kind of the overarching fight back on that.
That's a really difficult question for me to answer, not being around the team, obviously knowing, does it work or not? I mean, I imagine it seems to be working okay. Otherwise, they probably would make changes. I think they have assistants in key spots. Like they have 2 offensive line coaches, and that's important because it is such a large group overall that, trying to have one guy work, especially in camp with like 15, 16 offensive linemen, that's really difficult to do. So having 2 offensive line coaches, I think, is important for that position. They get some extra secondary help as well. Last year, Austin and Grady Brown were kind of helping. It was Austin and Tom Bradley years before. So I think they add extra people where it's needed and don't feel like they have to add extra people for the sake of adding extra people. So again, it's hard for me to really judge whether or not it's a good or bad thing, but I just wanted to get the facts out there. And that's the fact.
What about the last time this team won a Super Bowl, which was 2008? It was Tomlin, John Mitchell, Arians, Ken Anderson, Kirby Wilson, Randy Fichtner, James Daniel, Larry Zerline, Harold Goodwin, Dick LeBeau, Keith Butler, Ray Horton, Lou Spanos. Remember Lou Spanos? He was a defensive assistant. Bob Ligashevsky and Amos Jones. So that's 6.
It's a small coaching
7,
staff.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
That sounds about right. It's only 4 defensive coaches listed, unless they miss somebody. That's a small coaching staff.
And what do you have them at now?
18.
Okay, so they actually have 3 more now?
Yes.
Of course, I'm pulling this off of Wikipedia, and we all know how
honestly, Wikipedia was more reliable in our research than the team sites were, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. They could be missing somebody here. Just interesting to see what the numbers showed, and that's what the numbers showed.
All right.
So you can check that study out.
Good on you.
Steelers Depot. Thank you. It took way too long. I had to stop and start like 4 times because I kept screwing stuff up and seeing stuff that was wrong, and that was very frustrating. So good to get the data out there, which will be all irrelevant in a year when coaching staffs change again. So this has a short shelf life of information, unfortunately. But
the kids like to call that evergreen.
All right, Dave. Anything else you want to talk about today? I think that's kind of all that I had jotted down in my notes.
Did we get all of it?
I think we hit it pretty rapid fire. Yeah, today's pro day, North Carolina. That'll be the last big quarterback pro day. Although Howell's sounds like he's gonna throw again a second time. There'll be other bigger pro days. Florida's pro days today. We'll see who's there. Obviously, it won't be Colbert and Hunt and those guys, but they should have some guys out there for Florida. Probably Rick Caprice, because all I see is Rick Caprice. I see him in my dreams. I see that guy all the time on the pro day trail this year.
Any new additions to the pro day tracker?
Yeah, a couple small ones. If there's scouts and I see a scout, then I don't always mention that because it doesn't carry a ton of weight. I can confirm Mark Bruner was at Utah. I got some people asking, were they at Utah's pro day for Devin Lloyd and the big tackle that's there? They were. Let's see. You saw Dave Pettit at Boston College, so thank you because I was driving up a wall who was at Boston College.
Score one for Uncle Dave.
Yeah, you're getting a good eagle eye out there, but nothing significant. Anything that does come up, I'll certainly let you know.
All right, so shall we get to the email machine?
Yep, let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, Robbie writes in, Desmond Ritter, quarterback 1, ? Hi, Dave and Alex. I hope you are well. My question for you both, would you rather trade back to 25, picking up a 5th-round pick and draft Desmond Ritter, or trade up to 10, giving up next year's 1st-round pick for Malik Willis? I know nothing is guaranteed, but for the purpose of conversation, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you would do in this particular. So this is a hypothetical. Would we rather trade back to 25, picking up a 5th-round pick for starters? If I'm going to trade back to 25, I'd like to get a little bit more in a 5th-round pick, I think. Mm-hmm. He says to draft Desmond Ritter at 25 or trade up to 10, giving up next year's 1st-round pick for Malik Willis. What of those two scenarios, Alex? Look, I am in no way, shape, or form going to point a finger at the fence and say Malik Willis is the next, you know what? But boy, it sure is going to be fun to watch to see whether or not he can reach his, perceived higher ceiling. The gap from where he is now, at least in my eyes, to where his ceiling could be, it will be quite intriguing to see how that goes. Not only NFL for another team wise, but for the Steelers. So I still view him as having the highest ceiling in this quarterback class. And if you're telling me it only cost a 1st-round pick to go up to get him, I would lean to go more that way than I would to trade back to 25 and get a 5th-round pick to draft Desmond Ritter.
I would agree. And I think Willis, if he doesn't come to Pittsburgh, it'll be interesting because the fit's going to be so important to him. It's important for any quarterback, but like if he goes to a system and scheme that'll allow him to kind of sit and develop, that'll define his career. If he gets put into the Wolves right away, that'll define his career, I think, as well. I'm working on Ritter right now. I'm basically almost done watching Ritter, but I'm not completely done yet. I would agree with you. I'd rather, currently, based on where I'm at with my tape on Ritter, I'd rather trade up for Willis. I would just say, generally speaking, I don't compromise when it comes to the quarterback position. I don't want to take a lesser quarterback just to pick up some draft capital. I'd rather make the aggressive move to go get the guy I think that is just significantly better, even if it's going to cost me more. So I'll compromise on other things, but I won't compromise on getting the best quarterback possible.
What I'm trying to do with Ritter right now is go back and find some of those more jaw-dropping extend to play type plays.
Yeah, I think I've noted him to be a really good touch accuracy guy, placement downfield. The arm isn't, incredible or amazing. I do think there's certainly some value in how much he turned that program around. They were a 4-win team before he stepped on the field, and they won 9 games every single year. He played for them, and that was a shortened season. They won 11 games in the other 3 years, and he went to the playoffs and were competitive against Georgia, and kind of competitive, I guess, ish against Alabama. Didn't get their doors blown off of them at least. So there's value in a guy turning around a program like that, at least.
Right, absolutely. And look, he checks a lot of the boxes. Mobility and all that. It's just where is the wow on the tape? That's the biggest thing. And especially you keep going more so from the fact that I'm not saying that he can't be, become a, top whatever 15 quarterback in the NFL. Because look, once again, if teams had this down to a science, it'd be more out there and more of them would be able to give a definitive and not miss so much on these kids here. It's just, when you look at what things that Mike Tomlin has said with the mobility and the extend to play and the things that you feel that you need to have out of a quarterback in the NFL to not only make the playoffs, but be a team that's constantly competing in the championship games, in the conference championship games. I'm still looking for that kind of wow factor, the off script segment of Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good athlete. He's not nearly as good of an athlete as he tested. I mean, he tested off the charts. I don't see that on tape.
I mean, he's got like an 80-something yard run for a touchdown,
Yeah.
in one of these games. I mean, I'm just looking at it more from the playmaking ability when to play, just extend the play,
Sure.
there's the stuff that you see around the NFL that separates the top echelon quarterbacks from that next tier that gets their teams in the playoffs but doesn't go anywhere,
Right. But Ritter just doesn't make the oh wow plays that Willis does, but he doesn't make the oh wow plays that
Sure.
that Willis does in terms of the negative. There's a lot less negativity, and there's better work inside of structure. And as a coach, that's important because you're basing your whole game plan off the structure of the offense.
Sure, and one of the big questions on Malik is can you severely eliminate those the oh my god plays and get in the process more oh my god plays, that
right.
There's such a big gap in the high quality type wow plays and why did he do those kind of plays there? And then he does, some of that mobility and ability to feel pressure he really has. Now, on top of it, he does tend to, as we've mentioned in the past when it comes to Willis, will tend to fall back in the pocket and make things tougher on his tackles. But on the same, you also see that lower body and him stand in the pocket and make some really good throws on top of it. So it's just with him, once again, you're talking about a 2-year player that still has a lot of development to go. How far can you take that development in the positive direction and in the process eliminate the negativity in his game from just only playing in 2 years?
Yeah.
So it's a real hard evaluation on him because there are, and what makes it so hard, even harder, I think, are the wow plays that he has.
Yeah, I agree. There's more upside there with Willis. There's no doubt about that. But are you going to trust Ritter more down to down than you will Willis is the debate that people are going to have. I will say, Ritter's taller, but I watched that Bama game. He got 4 passes batted down in that game. Like they were just swatting him like it's a volleyball game. So that height doesn't always matter. It's your arm slot. It's your, ability to move within the pocket and those kinds of things, because that Bama game, they were the Kembe Mutombo swatting those balls back in his quarterback's face.
The safer kind of quarterbacks are obviously Pickett, Ritter, probably Corral, what you see is what you get, but is that enough for you?
Yeah. And I understand the point you're making and I agree, but I hate using that word safe in the draft because no one's safe.
Well, I mean, safer from maybe what you see on tape to what you're going to get at the NFL level.
It's an easier, clearer projection evaluation than it is with Willis. That's the way that I interpret it. But I know that sounds very semantics, and that's probably me being very like snarky and smarmy. But I hate when people call guys safe because no one's safe. Aaron Curry was supposed to be the safe linebacker coming out of Wake Forest, and he was a bust. So it's all kind of
the odds are, like I said, if this was a science at the quarterback position, there wouldn't be so many misses, and there are tons of misses year in, year out. I mean, how many drafted quarterbacks over the last 5 years have become that kind of franchise type guys, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Where do you throw Lamar Jackson into that?
Yeah, and it's worth noting. I know Lamar's case is a bit different, but Mahomes, Josh Allen, teams traded up to get those guys. Teams made aggressive moves to get those quarterbacks, and so I know the whole pushback on don't trade up for a quarterback, don't trade up for Willis or whatever guy you want to talk about. It's a move a lot of teams that sat there in the 20s have had to make. And that does guarantee success? No, obviously. But at some point, you got to call your shot and say, this is the guy, and you got to treat him like the guy and be aggressive about it.
I think the other kind of things that people will throw out every year or every other year to a high degree is how many of those franchise quarterbacks came picked 20 or later,
Yeah, even then the numbers start to dwindle. I mean, Lamar was 32nd. Baltimore took Hayden Hurst over Lamar Jackson, then traded back up to get Lamar. Kind of a weird one there. But yeah, the sweet spot is really top 15, top 10, top 5 even. I mean, if you're a quarterback and you can play, like you're going to go high. So generally speaking, the quarterbacks go in the top 20 of drafts.
All right, let's look at first round pick players last year. First round quarterbacks: Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, all picked in the top 15 picks. Kyle Trask was the 32nd overall, right? And that was second
Trask was
round.
In the first round. No, it was second round. You said 32nd overall. 60.
But didn't somebody lose a pick in there that made him the 32nd pick? Didn't the Patriots lose a pick that made Trask the 30?
Trask went 64th overall.
Oh, okay. What am I looking at here? Oh, I'm looking at pick. I'm looking at pick number in the round. Sorry.
Okay.
64,
yeah, 32nd second round.
Yeah, 32nd second round. So overall, you had 5 quarterbacks last year in the top 15, and then none others in the first round. In 2020, it went Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert were top, top 6 picks. Then the next quarterback was Jordan Love at 26th overall. There in the first round. 2019 went Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins in the top 15. The next quarterback wasn't picked until 42nd overall with Drew Lock. 2018, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, all first round. Lamar Jackson, first round, 32nd overall. Lamar Jackson seems to be kind of the outlier right now. Those other 4, Mayfield, Darnold, Allen, Rosen, all top 10 quarterbacks. 2017, Trubisky, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, all first round guys, 12 or higher overall. Deshaun Kaiser, 52nd overall. That year was the 4th quarterback taken. 2016, Goff, Wentz went 1 and 2. The next quarterback, Paxton Lynch, 26 overall, and then Christian Hackenberg, 51st overall. One more. 2015, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, 1 and 2 in 2015. The next quarterback, 75th overall, Garrett Grayson. There. I lied. 2014. Blake Bortles, 3rd overall. Johnny Manziel, 22nd overall. Teddy Bridgewater, 32nd overall in first round. I lied. One more. EJ Manuel, 2013, 16th overall. The next quarterback that year, 39th overall, Geno Smith. You seeing a trend here?
Yeah, I mean, it's the high-end quarterbacks go very, very early, and then generally speaking, there's a big gap after that. Now, there are some exceptions, some guys in the 20s and 30s, but more often than not, it's very bunched up, top 5, top 10. The quarterbacks go rapid fire, then there's a big lull to that second tier into that second, third round.
I'm trying to find the next kind of outside of 20 or outside of 19 that ended up, so far we just got Lamar Jackson, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Teddy turned out okay, but obviously not franchise caliber. Yeah, but this year's quarterback class is weird because you don't have those quarterbacks going top 5. You don't have the Burrows and the can't miss the Andrew Luck prospects of the world. It looks a little bit more like that EJ Manuel class where it's not as strong at the top, and you're going to see those guys start going in the teens, at least the double digits.
I'm struggling to find another quarterback dating back to, trying to find one outside the top 20 Aaron Rodgers, 24th overall, right?
Yeah. I mean, he fell into that Jeff Day fall that he had. Yeah. Again, is that a product of just the way the quarterbacks go? Typically, quarterbacks go super, super early, and this is just one of those weird years where that is unlikely to happen.
Okay.
But I get your point. I mean, I totally get your point.
Obviously the 2004 class, Manning first, Rivers 4th, Roethlisberger 11. Just from and all it takes is one to change the narrative, right? But it feels like that if you're going, that the upper tier, the quarterbacks that end up doing something end up being drafted within the first at least really 15 overall picks, to be quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I totally understand that. So it's probably a good study to put together. Let me see if I can get the list of quarterbacks taken between like 21 and 32. I think I can do that if you give me just a second to kind of vamp and stuff. But it's a good study.
Well, I'll vamp here for you. A lot of people don't remember 2004 after Roethlisberger went 11th overall. J.P. Lossman went 22nd overall. He was the next quarterback off the board that year. Into 2003, Carson Palmer, Byron Leftwich were both 1 and 7 overall. The next quarterback, Kyle Bowler, 19th overall. There. 2002, David Carr, Joey Harrington, Patrick Ramsey. Poor David Carr got thrown to the wolves. It's been interesting to see how his career would have went if he would have been brought along slowly. I don't think much would have changed. Drew Brees, 2001, went 32nd overall.
Yeah, here's the list of quarterbacks taken between 21 and 32 since 2000. There's 16 of them. I'll just read them off here quickly, and you've already gone through a fair amount of the names. Drew Brees, this is in terms of a top to bottom AV approximate value. Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Jason Campbell, Teddy Bridgewater, Rex Grossman, Tommy Maddox, J.P. Lossman, Patrick Ramsey, Brandon Whedon, Tim Tebow, Jim Harbaugh, which I'm not sure if he was drafted in 2000. That one looks weird. Johnny Manziel, Jordan Love, Paxton Lynch, and Brady Quinn.
I mean, that doesn't my stomach just got upset. Right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, Harbaugh was 87. I'm not sure why he's showing up here in 2000, but he was taken 26th overall. But yeah, in terms of like the quarterbacks who hit, it's Brees, Rodgers, Jackson, and the rest were either or bad.
You know, that doesn't give you a warm fuzzy just from looking at it from that perspective. And I get your argument, but you know, and short memory span, you know, what were the thoughts on quarterback classes? You know, back then, these guys are sure to go top, in the first round, just a matter of where maybe this team can get this quarterback because of the quarterback class being met. You know what I'm saying? I mean, can your argument be applied to other years in the past? And obviously, I don't have the recollection of
right.
that.
And is it just correlation causation? Is it because Malik Willis, if he goes 15, is he a good quarterback? If he goes 20, does that mean he's bad? Like, obviously, there's just a number. It doesn't really mean a whole lot, but it is your point of like, the good quarterbacks go early, and if you're not going early, generally, you're not that regarded as that top prospect. And yeah, Maddox was drafted in 92. The Pro Football Reference is kind of filtering results in a bit of a weird way, but I'm not missing any names here. So that's the list here. And again, it's Brees, it's Rodgers, it's Jackson. In terms of the last 2 decades of being like back end first round picks who hit.
So I mean, just if you're the third quarterback overall that gets drafted in this class, regardless of where that is. On top of what we just said, not being drafted in the top 15 picks, that's another reason not to have a warm and fuzzy,
Yeah, but I mean, end of the day, it's not going to bother me that much because it is just the history of it, and it's a small list in general. And is Malik Willis any better or worse of a quarterback if he goes 10 versus 21? I mean, no, he's still Malik Willis.
Well, just let teams more higher on him overall if he goes higher, obviously.
Right. No, I understand that.
It does. I get it. It doesn't increase or decrease the probability of him being successful overall. Only the player and the coaching staff can determine that. It's just the odds historically is what I'm looking at, and right. I'm huge on historical trends and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I get the point for sure. Like historically. The only thing you can do with the draft is look at what the past tells you. That's the best thing you can do is just kind of see how these things turn out. And history says quarterbacks drafted in that range don't turn out that well.
And how many of the top 3 overall quarterbacks drafted in this class are likely to become that guy, that game change, that new, franchise every year competing for a championship type guy? I mean, it's impossible to answer, but just looking at I'm just more looking at it at the historical aspect of it.
Right. Now, I will say the argument again says if you look at the top 5 quarterbacks, there's a lot of busts in there. It's 50-50. It does not look a whole lot better. There's some hits, but there's a lot of misses in there as well. Even the names you just rattled off. So bottom line is nothing here is guaranteed. Nothing's assured.
Okay.
All right.
You think they're going to trade up?
I really don't know. I think they're going to try. Can they do it? I mean, that's a very open question, but I think they're going to aggressively pursue the idea.
I really do as well, too. And if you had to guess, it would be Malik, right?
Yeah, I really don't know what other quarterback. I don't want to put myself in a box that way, but it's harder for me to imagine them trading up for any other quarterback.
Is there any quarterback that could fall into the second that interests you?
I mean, they could fall into the second, but are they going to get to 52? I
Right.
struggle with that. There are some people and some speculation. Could this team do what Baltimore does? And they don't trade up. They get a non-quarterback at 20 and then move back up into the first round to get Ritter or whoever you want to put in that spot, a la what Baltimore did. Is that, I mean, that's all possible, but how likely is that?
Right. Right.
Colbert's never done it before, but
I would think it's more like I would think the probability of them trading up in the first into the top 10 per se to get one is higher than them trading back into the bottom of the first to get one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is kind of weird. Even when Baltimore did it, it was weird to be like, we think this is our franchise quarterback, but we didn't take him with our first pick. We decided we'll go take someone else. But we love him. We think he can change our franchise immensely forever for the next 15 years, but we just didn't want to take him at 20. It's just a weird inconsistency to me.
And then there's the whole Steelers. We had a first round grade on Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, right.
All right. Boy, how'd you enjoy that rabbit hole?
That was a deep rabbit hole we went down. Oh my goodness.
Alex says, surely we could get this podcast done in an hour and a half.
Slap. Came out of my mouth.
Yeah, Dave gave him the slap there.
Chris Rock handled that. I give him credit. I mean, he handled that situation. I thought, well.
Ooh, I don't want to go there.
Right. I mean, I'm not like commenting on the joke. I'm just saying like handling just getting slapped on television.
Right.
I mean,
at first it made it seem like a bit because of the way he handled it,
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that was not a bit.
I'm pretty sure too. Brandon writes in if he's ready to come back, I'm all for it, even if it's just a rotational piece as he missed a year of football and it's going to take time for him to readjust his body. I don't know what went on and frankly don't care. Him being there last year would likely not have drastically changed things, he says, because you can never account for what else may have happened. He did have an injury and there's no way to know what condition he would have been in. It's the internet, but some the people that comment every time there's a Tuitt article that's discussing people that come out and comment. At the end of the day, the Steelers play a sport, provide entertainment for all of us. If whatever happens with the teams affects you this much, then you have a problem. None of us know these guys personally. Keep criticism to on the field play. So that's kind of his thoughts on that. Chandler writes in, happy Monday, quick 2-part question here. Do we believe that Chooks' contract was more about how the team believes this play had warranted it, or is this more about the tackle market, his age, and familiarity with the team? Secondly, do we see any scenario where the team drafts a corner and that player at any point starts over Witherspoon or Wallace? Obviously, given that player being younger, is playing around as well as those two. Once again, thanks for your content, guys. I think Chooks is what it is, kind of. When you look at his contract, and I think Mike Tomlin kind of summed it up. It's a guy that's young. They believe he's still ascending and has some growth and development in there. And then you look at his contract, and it's not that you're hoping for it. You don't sign players to 3-year deals to think that we got an ejection seat here after 1 year. But I mean, it's a 1-year deal if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I tweeted yesterday because I think Tomlin had made the reference that they wanted to sign these guys to 2-3-year deals to kind of lock them in. Pittsburgh does like the lease with the option to buy structure of their contracts. They get that first year in, see how it goes. If they like it, they'll continue. If not, they can kind of get out of it. With a core four, I think to the reader, I think it's both. I think to them, his play and talented warranted it to some degree, but then the alternatives look really ugly. Like the tackle market was poor and the price to pay for those guys is ridiculous. And the tackle class in the draft is pretty good, but this team wanted to address, the offensive line in other ways, bring in interior guys and keep their tackles and try to keep some continuity and not have to try to find 3 brand new offensive linemen to bring in, kind of what they had to do last year. So I think they just settled on the whole kind of, and it's going to sound negative, but the devil that you know, as opposed to the devil that you don't.
And his second, I'm the same way. I think it is more the devil that you know at this point, and the unlikelihood that they're probably going to draft a tackle early. It's not out of the question though. Especially with Dan Moore Jr. only having a 4th round invested in there. It's not totally out of the question. And if they do take a tackle in this draft, I kind of see it being maybe 5th round, 6th round, maybe even or not fifth round. They don't have fifth round pick, a fourth or sixth round kind of player there. Now, as far as corner goes there, if they draft one, he asked any point starts over Witherspoon or Wallace. Look, if you draft a corner in the first or second round this year, the Steelers, your hope is that you're going to get that guy in the field sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, that's the way that recent history has shown. Pittsburgh's caved to that, succumbed to that. They used to sit their guys. Remember, Cam Hayward sat for like 2 years, first round pick sitting behind, not anymore. So if they do that, then that's what it tells you. But obviously, with Witherspoon Wallace, they paid those guys, and those guys have proven themselves. So I don't know. I guess we'll cross that bridge here when we come to it.
Now, any corner drafted after the first 2 rounds, third or fourth, I think you just, you take your chance to see what you can do there. But there will be a lot of push to get a first or second round cornerback on the field sooner rather than later, I would think.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the more likely scenario of what they actually do is taking more of that mid-round guy than a top-end player.
Clegg Ivy writes in, great podcast, guys. I've been listening for a long time, and you guys offer more information and insight than any other Steelers podcast, hands down. Thanks for that, Clegg. He says, get out your tinfoil hats because I have a crazy theory. He says, let's say the Steelers have decided they're going to have to take a flyer on a quarterback this season, but they also know Kevin Colbert is stepping down. Is it possible Colbert is waiting until after the draft to step down to protect Brandon Hunt from having his tenure as GM crippled from the start by controversy surrounding that quarterback pick? If the pick works out, they can reveal later on that it was Brandon Hunt's choice and becomes the keystone of his tenure as GM. If it doesn't work out, then the blame goes to Colbert, and Hunt gets the chance to be GM who fixed the glitch. I understand that. Look, that's my level tinfoil hat stuff right there.
You got to call this guy. You guys got to hang out.
Yeah. I gotta see where he gets that hat manufactured at. That hat's a lot more powerful. I see where you're coming from, Clegg. I guess that's how Alex looks at a lot of things I say. Maybe it does seem a little out there, though. Slap.
Yeah.
That sounds a little out there even for me, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really interesting thought. I don't think Kevin Colbert's doing that, staying in power to do that, to like shield Brandon Hunt, because hey, we don't know who the GM is going to be. It may be some outside hire. I guess you could apply it to any future GM name there. I think even in that scenario,
we're all day to day, man.
All right, now we're getting really like existential on the podcast. I mean,
you know what I'm saying? I don't think they run around worried about how one potential new GM will look because of a one pick after the fact kind of thing.
Yeah, and listen, if they draft a quarterback, he's not very good and his team struggles, Hunt's going to get flack regardless. No one's going to really care about the semantics of who drafted who, and Hunt was on staff. It's not like Hunt was out of house and then brought in and had no involvement in this process. Like, you're going to get criticized no matter what, if your team isn't playing well, regardless of what other regimes or other guys are doing. So I think ultimately it'd be kind of a moot point, because if this team's 5-12 with a quarterback and Hunt's a GM, he's going to get criticized for it, no matter if it's valid or not.
Right. Clegg, is that a Rydell tinfoil hat?
Is that they make them? Oh my
God. Let's see here if I can find maybe.
Going to be in that Las Vegas desert, you and Clay, just chilling on a van.
Man, I hate to tell you, it was like 90s in Vegas this last few days here. Well, I think you had snow, didn't you not?
Yeah, it's 22 and actively snowing right now, so I'm kind of jealous.
It's not that right now. I think it's 67 outside right now here in Las Vegas. Richard Jameson, Willis versus Haskins. You have suggested that the Steelers might be able to obtain the rights to draft Malik Willis for 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. That would get them a mobile quarterback with a strong arm, but who needs to be developed. But they already have a mobile quarterback, he says, with a strong arm, Dwayne Haskins. If the Steelers think they cannot develop Haskins into an NFL starter, why should we believe that they can develop the similar Willis into an NFL star? He says, I'm not at all a Haskins fan, but I want to understand your thinking and their thinking. I don't view Haskins as being all that mobile of a quarterback, to be honest with you. I don't know where that narrative kind of came from. He's more of just that bigger kind of, shrug people off kind of guy more than anything. And even he didn't, I don't think, did that a lot. He did have a strong arm. Never really could dial that thing in on the tape that I looked on, large sample of tape that I looked on, after they signed him. Once again, the comment of he can throw it through a car wash and the ball not get wet. Sure, I get that, but where is it going? Is it knocking out any mirrors or when you throw it through that car wash? Kind of like the old Bull Durham thing, hit the bull kind of thing, which that went right over Alex's head there. But kind of the nuke lelouch, Dwayne Haskins, and I'm not so sure the X's and O's and football smarts is there. And the same can be said about Malik Willis at this point too. A lot of question about what he ran offensively versus what he'll be asked to run in the NFL. Him basically being in a very scaled down, simple offense. And once again, he only played 2 years really of football at the quarterback position. So that's another thing that I think that needs to be considered here. From where we sit right now, I view Willis as still having a much higher ceiling than Haskins does at this point. But you got to get him to that ceiling.
Sure. I don't really buy the idea that because they took a no-risk flyer on Haskins a year ago, that means they shouldn't draft a quarterback or aren't capable of developing quarterbacks. And Haskins, while he has a big arm similar to Willis, does not have near the mobility, the dynamic playmaking ability with his legs that Willis does. So I really think that's a very, very loose comparison between the two. And Haskins was a flyer and Willis would be like more of the guy. So circumstances and all those things in their play styles to me are pretty different.
I agree. That should be a good jumping off point. One more. Clifford King writes in, Dave T and the Parcells quarterback rules. Want to thank you both for the draft talk and player projections, including mock drafts, even though I know they are not Dave's favorite thing to do. I think most listeners appreciate the insight. I don't know if you read some of them comments, Clifford. When you guys go over that stuff, it makes me miss Dave T. Thomas' unique style of player analysis and projections. He is missed. I kind of wonder, he says, I kind of wonder how Dave T would rattle off this quarterback class. That has crossed my mind more than once. This class in total, just being able to throw one name out at Dave T and get 8 back. Definitely not going to find another guy like Dave T. Thomas, and we do indeed miss him and his contributions. He says, are there any plans to have any draft expert guest on the show in the future? Not right now, because for one, I mean, Dave T was so unique, and Dave T came along in the podcast at a very unique time too, I think. And it's not so that we're not it's hard for me to say this. There's nobody out there that impresses me kind of like Dave T. Thomas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he set an incredibly high bar. And I feel like we don't bring somebody of that potential caliber, it's going to feel less than. So Dave T was the man. He's obviously irreplaceable for the knowledge and the way he expressed that knowledge and those kinds of all great and quirky things we loved about him. If we find someone that can bring similar, then certainly we'll have that person on, but there'll be big shoes to fill, no doubt about it.
I mean, I think we got some great guys on the site that bring a lot to kind of this draft discussion. Devin too. We've had Devin. Devin writes and does profiles for us and all. Does a great job. I mean, sure, I guess we could kind of reach out and get Daniel Jeremiah, but I mean, you already get that stuff on the mainstream level anyway. How are we going to really cater it to where we're asking them that much unique questions, I guess, and where it really sticks out him having can't wait to have, because you get that guy so frequently. Now, who's the new guy at ESPN that worked his way up through the ranks?
Jordan Reed.
Yeah, he's a good one. I think he does a great job, but he's mainstream now. I mean, I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head that I think, oh man, I'd love to have that guy on to talk the draft, when we've got our own guys that I know for a fact watch the tape.
Yeah, I think the conversations we've had with everyone who's been on the show, whether that's Tom or Josh or Jonathan or Devin, all those guys, that's who we want to rely on. And Dave T was interesting because he wasn't mainstream. He didn't do a lot of media stuff. He had the podcast that he had did those last couple of years, but he wasn't on ESPN. He wasn't on your television all the time. So if we can get Mike Mayock, though, he's not doing much these days. I will gladly get Mike Mayock on the podcast.
By the way, that was a great interview he had on the Dan.
Thank you for sending that.
Yeah, Dan Patrick show the other day. If none of you have seen it, go to YouTube and search Mike Mayock on Dan Patrick, and it should come up quite easily. Pretty good interview with Mike Mayock and all.
And can I just say really quickly, I my very nerdy reporting hat. Dan Patrick's such a good interviewer, just so good with the questions. Yeah. Asked the Gruden question too. I didn't think he was going to ask a Gruden question, but just like didn't drag it out. Just the very last time he talked to Gruden, just right. Punchy, perfect, got an answer, brilliant.
And Mayock complimented him on that too. Yeah, you Simon was great on kind of you didn't come out of the chute with that.
Reeled them in.
Reeled them in. So yeah, Dan Patrick is very good when it comes to interviewing people for sure there. Where was I going here? One final part of this question real quick. He says, also wondering how the top quarterbacks, Willis, Corral, Pickett, Ritter, fare using the Bill Parcells quarterback prospect rules. I think I put something up not long ago. Pickett, I think, checks the Parcells. I haven't gone individually. I would think, let's see. Kenny Pickett checks all 7 boxes on the Bill Parcells rules for drafting a quarterback. How I was able to pull this up so fast, man.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That's that tinfoil hat.
My interneting skills are a lot better than my article writing skills. Pickett checks all 7 boxes. What are those 7 boxes? 3+ year starter, senior in college, graduate, started 30+ games, win 23 or more games, post a 2-to-1 TD to interception ratio, complete at least 60% passes thrown. Those are the 7 things on the Parcells checklist, and Kenny Pickett checks all 7 boxes. Obviously, Malik does not check that. How many years was obviously Corral doesn't check it because he wasn't a senior. Was he or was he?
No, he's an underclassman.
Has Corral graduated yet? I don't think so. Has Corral started 30+ games, 123? Ritter
might check all those boxes.
Yeah. What do you have Ritter up there?
I'm pulling up his numbers at least. Let me try to find everything here. I mean, he was a 4-year starter. He was basically a 4-year starter. 60% of his passes.
Senior, right?
Senior, yeah.
Has he graduated? Probably.
I assume so. I don't know that for a fact, but I assume so.
Started 30+ games.
Yes.
Win 23 or more games.
Yes.
Post a 2-to-1 TD to interception ratio.
Yes.
Complete at least 60% passes thrown.
Yes.
All right. So I think other than just wondering whether or not he has actually graduated yet.
Which I can try to find here really quick. Maybe the internet will help me out. He graduated in December of 2020. Actually, might graduate a while ago.
Okay, so Pickett and Ritter fit it. Howell?
Howell might be close. Effort. He's a senior. He's
3-year starter?
Yes, 3-year starter.
Started 30 or more games? Won?
Yes.
23 or more games?
I believe so. I don't have exact win-loss, but I assume he hit that mark.
Post a 2-to-1 TD to interception ratio.
Yes, all of these days, few quarterbacks don't do that, but yes.
And complete at least 60% of passes thrown.
Yes. Oh, so actually, he's not a senior. He is an underclassman, but he did graduate. He's one of those. That's why he got to the Senior Bowl.
That's the old COVID thing, right?
I don't know. It says 2021 he was a junior. I don't know if it's a COVID thing or not.
Okay.
But I guess technically he wasn't a senior in college, and so he would not actually qualify, but he did graduate.
Okay, so let's assume Pickett, Ritter, and Howell made it, right?
Right,
and that's rare. That's rare, I think, to have that many hit all 7 in a.
And technically, Howell doesn't because he wasn't a senior. So I mean, technically, Howell, if you want to be super strict, does not actually check those boxes because we're excluding Corral. So we probably should. I don't know if he graduated, but we should probably exclude Howell, technically speaking.
Okay, so then that leaves Pickett and Ritter, right?
Correct.
And Carson Strong.
It's also a good question.
Well, you leave it to Uncle Dave to get you down these rabbit holes, right? I wonder how. Tell me whether or not you like Uncle Dave sending nephew Alex down these rabbit holes like this. It's better than doing Hinge or Unhinged or
Edge, as you like to say. Strong, technically not a senior. Again, another one of those underclassmen that I assume graduated, but he was a redshirt junior, so he was a 4-year guy. I guess technically, though, did not actually play as a senior, if that's a distinction Parcells wants to make. So I guess he does not technically fit either.
All right. So 2 of them, right?
2 of them, Pickett and Ritter, to a T.
Yeah, and Malik nowhere, at least not in the starter. And
he doesn't check most of those boxes. He was not a 3-year starter. I guess he was a senior. Did he start 30 games? I don't think he started 30 games. Did he win 23 games? Probably did. I don't know. Anyway,
is there some, because of this, does this fall into the category of maybe Malik maybe falling down to 20?
I don't.
Have you given any more thought to Malik maybe falling to 30?
So 20.
20.
I'm in the same camp I've been in before. Am I going to rule it out and say there's no chance? No, there's a chance, but I think those odds are pretty low.
All right. And the thing about, and I for years I would track that Parcells, but now with so many kids coming out nowadays, and especially with COVID mixed in there now, it's hard to rubber stamp those things right now with the games missed and all like that. And how do you adjust for that kind of thing? And how many quarterbacks actually stay all years now?
Yeah,
maybe more should. Kenny Pickett's a perfect example of why you should.
Yeah, it's a great point.
All right. I think that's a good jumping off point here, right, Alex? In the meantime, you can follow me. I hope you enjoyed all that extra rabbit hole tunnel in there. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, there's an ad-free version for $25, upper right navigational bar. Alex and I will be back on Wednesday. Sure, we'll have plenty more to talk about then as we move forward into this week. Boy, the NFL just does not slow down. Now you know why I take that 1 week when I do off, right, Alex? Because it's just wide open since then. Until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.